Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we do need to refuel our Starship HLS, and I've got the Starship tanker loaded up here. We already have one in orbit around the moon, and I kind of want to move that back, but for right now, we do need to get a second one lifted off. So what I'm thinking right now is we have a Starship tanker that is like in orbit of Kerbal, right? And then that gets refueled by another Starship tanker to be full, and then goes off to the moon using about 800 meters per second to do that, and then another roughly 500 or so to rendezvous up. So that would end up costing us about 1,300 meters per second. One thing we could consider doing is some sort of a strap-on tank for that. That would be interesting. No doubt about that. A strap-on tank could work. I'd want to get that built on in orbit, for sure. So if we were to do that, we would need to be able to recover a Starship tanker. That would be a pretty big deal, because this is really expensive, right? I would like to drop the cost of this, no doubt about that. And if we look at this, we can see that this here, this engine plate and the contents on it are roughly half of the cost of the entire engine, or the entire rocket here. So these mainsails are super expensive. We can see that right now it's 1.66 thrust to weight. So I want to try taking off all of these mainsails, and I want to attempt putting on rhinos instead. Now, rhinos are more powerful than mainsails. They're also quite a bit more expensive. The main question is, and we would need to make this be compact rhinos. The main question is, how many rhinos would it take to get us back up to that 1.66 marker? So we can put this in here, and this would be fine. I would actually want all of these engines to fire simultaneously, so it would end up being something kind of like this. And then this engine plate would never get utilized, as would this. Okay, so something like that. Now this is 0.12, and if we were to put this in on 8x symmetry, this is going to be expensive. No doubt about it, but will that allow us to cut 4 engines, and would that be worthwhile? This is more expensive than it was before, and it's less thrust to weight. So no, I think that the answer is that the mainsails are the way to go here, but they're also turbo expensive. So there is that. I would kind of like to make a couple of recovery easing modifications here. That being, I'd like to add some parachutes on both of these, ideally. So the idea here is we want to be able to recover these, and I'm not hugely confident in our ability to do so via landing. So on this, I think all we need to do is add in some drogues. To be clear, we can recover this. We've proven that that is possible, but I want to just make it a little more likely because it's so much money. We need to make this be much more recoverable. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put in some drogue chutes here, and I'm only going to put in drogues. So we're not going to put any mains on this stage here. I'd like to put them like halfway in between here. So like there or so. So these chutes are going to end up being like here, but they're going to have to be like ultimately here, right? And I want all of these to be merged together into one stage for right now, so it's going to end up being something like that. Now, as far as the Starship tanker goes, we're not going to attempt the belly flop maneuver. I'm just going to put some chutes on here as well to attempt to make it a little bit easier for us to control the situation. I would also like to get some amount of RCS on here. So to that end, I'm going to put some amount of RCS on. That'll make things a lot easier for docking, no doubt about it, but this is still going to be very hard to move around even with RCS. So we're going to grab ourselves some RCS tanks here. What size is this? A little smaller? About that size? Okay. That extends out this nose, which is not necessarily ideal, but I think it's about the best that we're going to do. And then I'm going to put in a bunch of monoprop thrusters here. So I'm going to do actually 8 of them, and we're going to do something along the lines of that. Okay, now as far as chutes go, I'm also only going to do drogues here. So the idea here is that we're going to do some drogue chutes, and that will slow us down most of the way, assuming that the drogue chutes are actually fireable. To be clear, this is a departure from how this actually works, but this will make things a lot simpler for us going forward, and given the amount of money that is involved here, we really need simpler at this time. So I'm going to do something along the lines of that. So the idea here is this goes up into orbit, into a parking orbit. We recover this guy the way we did previously, except, and this is going to need to be moved up a little bit, it looks like, except that we end up recovering it more regularly due to the chutes, in theory. The chutes will help. I don't expect the chutes to completely get us there. For the record, we're still going to have to propulsively land, for sure. We need to go like one tick higher. Okay, so we're still going to need to propulsively land both of these. These chutes are not intended to get us all the way there. They're just intended to help us have slightly better aerodynamics, and in the case of the Starship, pull us around correctly, is the idea. Okay, so the Starship tanker is going to lift off and make its way into orbit here. And I'm going to do a test flight of that. So let's save this and put this out on the pad. And we're going to have to, I think we're going to have to say that we get a standard payment for completing this refueling mission, because it's just so much cash, right? It's an insane amount of cash that we're putting into this. In reality, there's I'm 99% certain that Starship does not cost anywhere near what SLS costs. In reality, I'm pretty sure it's a fair amount cheaper to fly, although I don't think it's exactly public. There was some wiggling going on down here. We'll keep an eye on that as we lift off here. We might have to do something about that. That is noted. So for the time being, this will do absolutely fine for right now, assuming that we don't have any wiggling problems. And yeah, we're going to have to get paid for this mission, but that's fine. We're going to throttle up, we're going to go to kill rot, and off we go. Excellent. So we definitely have a bit of departure from the actual Starship, and that's not necessarily shocking. Cool. So we are heading off here. 2 kilometers is our apoapsis. We should start heading downrange fairly soon, but I'm going to wait until, like, I think 15 felt good, to be honest. 15 felt pretty good. So just going to let this continue to lift off here. We are now at about 9 kilometers. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Okay, so over we head. Pulling up a little bit there. I don't want it to necessarily be pulling up. I want to be in an equatorial orbit. And we're just going to head over as much as the game will allow us, which currently is right about here. Aerodynamics are not really wanting us to go over further, but we'll continue to head over. There we go. Something more akin to this. So once we arrive at the 45-degree marker, we'll burn there for a little bit. Right about here. And we're going to do our separation in just a moment. We're keeping 15 seconds of fuel. Okay. And now we're going... Yeah, that happens. Now we're going to go to horizontal velocity up. Fantastic. And we're just going to burn here until this reaches 200 kilometers. Cool. So that's absolutely fine. All 6 engines are currently burning. Excellent. And we can see our time to apoapsis is currently going down, which is reasonably expected. The real question is, how's our timing going to go? Because this Starship tanker, I believe, did not make it out of the atmosphere there. So that's going to be kind of spicy for us. We'll see how that goes. We're at a 93-degree heading right now. Okay, I'm going to pull that down a little bit here. We'll see how we do doing that. It's 91 at this point. That's better. It's close enough. Okay, time to apoapsis is going up. That is a very good sign. But we can see that we're burning quite a lot of this fuel, right? And that's not necessarily what we want. So we're just going to bring this up. The strap-on fuel tank is an interesting idea, but what we really need is to recover this Starship and bring back our other tanker, which is currently completely dry, and that is understood as being a problem. I don't know what's going on with our super heavy booster right now. I'm not sure that that got up high enough. We'll have to keep an eye on that one. But for now, we are at 150, 160, 170, 180, 190, and 200. Okay, we got to swap back, and we got to do it now. This is starting to head down. Okay, noted. That is absolutely okay. Fantastic. So we're going to get into position here. We want to be at surface velocity minus right away. We're going to enable our aero brakes. There we go. And we don't know where surface velocity minus is right now, but we're heading on over there. Okay, it's out over this way. With our aero brakes, we're able to get a fair amount of movement there. Okay, so our current mission is to make our way over here and continue to head down through the atmosphere. We're going to have to burn, I think, reasonably soon because we are struggling to make our way to surface velocity minus here. Okay, I'm going to let us continue to fall for a bit here. We're actually holding attitude kind of okay. We're definitely not in a position to get those chutes out, but the chutes will help us. So we're just going to bring this on over. We can see we're increasing speed still. Okay, we're overshooting up this way a little bit, but that's reasonably fine. Still increasing speed. Keeping an eye on. Okay, commencing our re-entry burn now. Okay. I believe that was chutes out. Chutes out. There we go. Chutes are out. That looks good. We are slowing down considerably now. The chutes should help us hold this attitude as well. Chutes are deploying. Commencing landing burn. Okay. This speed is definitely interesting. This is a lot more stable. No doubt about that. A whole lot more stable. So that's a splashdown there. That is a lot more recoverable with those chutes. No doubt about it. So that looks good. That is very, very manageable at this point, and I'm hoping that we end up seeing the same thing. And we actually had 6 seconds of burn time left over, so we can throw a little bit more into that initial propulsion with those chutes. That helps a lot. So let's recover that, and let's get our tanker into orbit. So we need another tanker in orbit, of course. And we're going to, I think, bring back our existing tanker that is around the moon. Now, that has no fuel right now, so it'll need to meet up with the existing HLS, pull some fuel out of that. Yeah, I think that'll be the most efficient way to do this. Or at least the best way for us. But that did recover about half of the funds that was costed from that launch. So that's fantastic. We can head into the tracking station and get the tanker properly into orbit. That is, of course, our next mission here. This is on a suborbital trajectory. And that's absolutely fine. So we're going to get this launched up and get these tankers met up. That's going to be interesting here. So that is our next mission, and then we recover this guy, right? So this is going to be a bit of a process. We're going to add a maneuver here. This is going to be circularization, something along the lines of this. We'll align to that node, and we're going to turn very, very slowly. Now, we have RCS, but I don't want to use it yet. So for this stuff, well, first off, we definitely need to remember to extend our solar panels. That would help. We don't want to run out of electric charge. But for this, I'm completely content operating based on the reaction wheel that we have, which isn't much of a reaction wheel, but I don't want to use this monoprop at this time. Our monoprop reserve is going to be relatively limited because, well, we're going to be bringing this tanker back up, right, and refueling it that way. So in theory, we can monoprop this. Okay, so with it monopropped, that'll be a lot easier to reach. And from here, we can warp forward. Looks good. Now, I'm going to be shutting down our mainsails here. We're going to be operating purely off of these poodles, so vacuum-optimized engines, just to have that higher specific impulse. 40 seconds, 30, 20, 10, and 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. So we can see we end up burning almost exactly half of our fuel in order to get into orbit here. So that means that each of these is going to require 2 launches to refuel to full, right? And there'll be a little left over in theory. Okay, let's just get that into its proper orbit. This is good enough. So we can look at our actual fuel count here, a little bit over half. That is noted. So now what we want to do is we want to hop over to the moon, and we want to fly the HLS here. Now, this is going to be a different situation later, but for now, we're going to hop over to the Starship HLS. And the turning here is what's going to be interesting, but the HLS should have an okay amount of turning. I want to see how much delta V we've got left here. 2640. Okay, that should be plenty. So what I want to do is I want to set this Starship tanker as our target. We can see we're 15.5 meters per second apart. I want to just head over to the target, and we want to, well, we're going to want to push a little beyond the target here. So we're going to want to bring this down over this way and just pull our velocity over here. Okay, something along the lines of almost that. That's pretty close, but we're going to need to get that dialed in a little bit more. So where is the best intersect here? Well, we do have a 29 meter per second difference here. Our current... I don't think that's accurate. Okay, let's warp a bit forward here and see how this ends up drifting. We're about 10 kilometers away right now. It's looking okay. It's drifting off this direction, though, and I would like to bring that around. We're about 3.7 kilometers away, so let's head over to relative velocity minus here. That seems absolutely fine, and we'll do a small corrective burn out this direction. Because, of course, we're going to need to get this all set up. Now, that thing does not currently have any amount of fuel in it, right? So it can't do any burns here. So we're just positioning about here. I'm going to get ourselves a little bit of a teeny tiny burn, but we want to overshoot this a little bit. So we're going to put this in kill rot down over here. We're just getting ourselves a corrective burn here. That's close, but not exactly where we want to be. And we're still at 15.1 meters per second, so I'm going to continue to bring this guy down. Okay, that's about 5 meters per second. 3, 2, 1, and we're about half a meter per second. Okay, so at this point, we are relatively close right now, and I want to set this as our target, if we can grab it. Apparently we can't, but it doesn't really matter all that much. So I want to hop over to the tanker here. The tanker is going to be heading back. Where is it? There it is. The tanker is going to be heading back. So we want to set the HLS as our target, and I want to point at target. So we're going to very, very slowly turn the tanker here. The tanker is not particularly maneuverable. This model of tanker is one that I'd like to retire. The other model is better. No doubt about that. But this might be the one that just sits in orbit. Yeah, that's probably for the best. That this one just sits in orbit above Kerbal. Okay, so we're just moving this guy on over here. And that'll be okay. I want to continue to burn out this direction a little bit. So we're going to put this in kill rot, and we're going to bring this over just ever so slightly this way and just do a small corrective burn. Okay, and now we're going to sit at target plus. We're probably going to have to do more corrections, but that's okay. We're going to flip this guy right on around, and we can see that this guy is not exactly pointing where we want it to. But we're just on our way in very, very slowly here. I want to grab this docking port if we're close enough now. If we can see it. Where is it? There it is. Nope, we're struggling to click on that. That's okay. So for now, we want to point at target here. And we can see we're definitely a little bit off here. No doubt about that. This is something RCS will fix. And having our tanker be an RCS tanker is going to be very convenient. No doubt about that. That said, we're probably still going to want to replace this guy. Are you heading to target plus? Maybe. That is a definite maybe. I'm going to pull this guy down over here. Ooh, hang on. That was a lot. That was a whole lot. We are still in physics warp here. That's part of the problem. Okay, we need to bring this guy around. And we need to do a corrective burn on the other side. I didn't realize I was still in physics warp there. Okay, so we need to push this node. We're in a similar position to where we want to be, but we're not quite there. We need to push this node up this way. Okay, now we need to head to relative velocity minus. And here we come. We're very, very close here. We just need to kill this momentum, right? We don't necessarily want to impact here. But we're very, very close. Okay. I'm just bringing our momentum way, way down for the moment. It's down to about 0.6 meters per second. We're continuing to align here. 0.3, 0.2, 0.1, and 0. That's close enough. Okay, we're going to flip around to target plus. We can see we have a little bit of relative momentum still, but that's okay. And we're going to get docked up here and transfer maybe even all of the remaining fuel over here over. All is probably overkill. I think that we need to transfer something more akin to... We could transfer it all. That would be fine. Okay, we just want to head in very, very gently here. Okay, and we'll let these align. And this should be a pretty clean dock. In theory. Docking forces should handle this small amount of drift. I'm not too concerned about that one. Make sure that we're controlling from here. We are. Set as target, and we're docked. Beautiful. So at this point, I'm going to move all of this fuel here, and we're going to bring that over to here. All of that should move just fine into this tank. So all of that fuel goes over. This guy is going to be parked in Kerbal orbit, although we're going to want a tank of monoprop on here. Okay, we may expend this starship and bring up a second starship in order to fix that. A second starship tanker of our second variation. So for now, let's undock this. There we go. And this guy is going to be heading back. Now, this guy has some issues, no doubt about it. And we're going to need to align for this burn. So where are we in our orbit? Here? Okay, we're going to need to burn prograde about here. And that is going to end up wanting to be a periapsis here of somewhere around 400 kilometers is what I want to target here. So that gets us most of the way there. That'll do. 256.9 meters per second to bring this back. That is not bad at all. So let's align to that node. We might end up pushing this a little bit. We appear to have gotten very little speed away from each other. That's okay. I'm not concerned about that. Okay, just waiting for this to clear. Seems relatively clear. Let's align to this. There we go. All of our fuel is down in this tank, so our center of mass is down lower. So that means our pivot point is like here or so, I think. Ish. Something like that. So we're just going to position for this burn, and we'll bring this on back. And then this will get docked up. But actually, I'm strongly considering... Well, maybe we dock this up first. I'm not entirely certain yet. Let's warp on over. And we're going to burn on out of here. This is, of course, burning just with our poodle engines at this point, which is all we need. So this will be about a 5-second burn? Really? For 256 meters per second with poodles? What thrust to weight is this? 28.3. I guess we're over the moon and we're nearly empty on fuel. So that does make some amount of sense. Yeah, these mainsails are deactivated. The poodles are activated. It's interesting that this is 1789 meters per second, whereas the other was higher delta V. This must have a slight mass differential from, like, these tanks, or the fact that there are 4 poodles compared to 3. That's interesting. We'll see how accurate this is. This is 30 seconds. Let's continue to warp forward. 20, 10, and 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Yeah, this is going to be considerably more than 5 seconds of burn time. Okay. We appear to have some incorrect calculations here. But that's okay. We can work with that. So I'm definitely going to make sure that we close this shield. There we go. And we just need to finish this burn here. Okay, about 2 meters per second left. This is good enough. We are input locked right now, but I'm going to clear that just to get rid of this maneuver. Okay, so at this point, we are coasting on back to Kerbal. So that looks good, 413 kilometers. The question now becomes, if we set this as our target, we are at an inclination of 1.9. That's manageable. We would bring this in, and that would be 795.2 meters per second. Okay, so this is all fine. I think that this is not counting these mainsails as being shut down here. I'm pretty sure that that's what we've got going on here. So that is okay. As far as the actual starship goes, I'm thinking about just expending it and bringing up a second tanker starship and just working off of that. So what that would end up meaning is actually continuing to burn prograde here. So that would mean just expending this, or just crashing it into the moon. That could work too. And then doing the refuel with 2 completely fresh starships. That is what I'm strongly considering. Let's just expend this into Kerbal and see what happens. So I'm just going to bring this down to about 25 kilometers. That sounds good. And we're going to warp to about here. We do have some burn time left here. So we'll try to recover this, but I don't think it's going to succeed, to be sure. I'm going to turn off our vacuum optimized engines as soon as we're done with this warp. And we are going to turn on our mainsails here. So we'll activate this engine, activate this engine, activate this engine. And we're going to deactivate this one, and this one. Okay, how much burn time is that? That is 24 seconds of burn time. Gotcha. Okay, so let's try to recover this thing. I don't think we're going to be super successful at it. I want to warp to about here. And we're going to need to get ourselves to surface velocity minus, but attitude control is going to be a problem. And we'll see if we're able to even come in engines first. That'll be the ideal scenario, but attitude control is not great here. No doubt about that. Now, the tankers, I'm deliberately leaving the fins off of because I don't feel like they help and they would add mass. So that's fine. But I don't actually expect to successfully recover this. I want to be clear about that. I just want to see how it goes. So for now, we're just going to get ourselves roughly into position, warp down a little bit further here. Okay. And we should start getting ourselves back into surface velocity minus. We also want to retract our photovoltaic panels on the off chance... Oh, this one didn't go. On the off chance that this ends up actually working. Okay. So we have enough fuel here for a pretty hefty re-entry burn. And I'm going to do that right now. We're going to burn down to about 10 seconds of burn time left. So we're bleeding off a lot of horizontal speed here. 11, 13, 12, 11, and 10. Okay. So we burned off a lot of horizontal speed there, to be sure. And that helped us hold attitude here. Oh, I didn't retract this antenna. We should definitely do that. There we go. We are still accelerating a little bit here, and we're seeing heat build up. So that is noted. We do have a fair amount of speed here still. We're, of course, coming back from the moon, but that's okay. So we're in surface velocity now, and we're still increasing our speed, which is not necessarily a great sign. We're at 30 kilometers right now. And we're seeing our heat gauges heat up here. No doubt about that. We're coming in still a little too fast. 7 seconds remain of burn time. Okay. And we're still accelerating. So our aerodynamics here aren't great. Like I said, I expected to expend this. This is mostly to see how this would end up going. Okay. So we had an engine burn off there, and I'm just going to burn the remainder of our fuel here. Losing a mainsail there is not great, but that is the remainder of our fuel. And at this point, there's very little we can do about this. I just want to see how quickly we end up impacting. We are slowing down a fair amount. So this ends up meaning that for that return, we definitely needed a higher aerobrake number. That's fine. We're not actually intending on coming back from the moon with this. I just wanted to see how this ends up going. And it's actually, I think it's manageable. Especially with those drogues. Drogues would be deployable very, very shortly here. About now, drogues would be deployable. So this definitely does seem manageable to me. Yeah, we burned off our fuel a little bit too early there, but the takeaway there, and this is going to go boom, the takeaway there is that we were coming back from a lunar trajectory. This is a lot more energetic than what we're actually going to be doing. So this is pretty interesting. Only 300 meters per second. Yeah, that was very interesting indeed, and a little flickery, but very interesting indeed. So they call it a catastrophic failure, but I'm going to call that a success, because that achieved what we wanted it to. Expending that vehicle is fine. We always expected that. We actually have some tanker debris in flight here. This isn't going to actually net us anything. I'm just going to clean all of this up. I guess we could recover this. That doesn't actually get us anything either. Okay. So we're going to do that, and next episode, we're going to drop a second Starship tanker into orbit, and the goal behind that one is going to be to refuel our existing Starship tanker, and hopefully bring that pretty close up to full fuel. Pretty close, anyway. And I would also like to figure out some way to get a little bit more fuel out there, but realistically, I think a tanker here, and then a tanker refuel, maybe a second tanker refuel, both of those being recovered, should be pretty economical. And then this guy heads out to the moon and does the refuel, and then heads back. And we know that that requires something along the lines of, I think it's around 1,000 delta V to return back to here. So that's definitely very interesting. We don't have to go into this orbit either. We can go into a potentially higher orbit, and that's probably a better orbit to go to. So that's a fascinating thing, for sure. And that is something we'll work on next episode. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Shadow Wolf, Kintogan, Ali Lee, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Soccerman12UK, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.